She did not wake up one day and feel nothing. It was not random, it was not unpredictable, and it was definitely not out of nowhere. What feels sudden to you was gradual for her. You did not lose her in a moment. You lost her slowly, through small, repeated behaviors you never noticed because you were inside them. And that is the part nobody tells you. You have felt this before. Conversations get shorter, her energy shifts, she feels distant. And you ask yourself, what changed? But here's the reality. Nothing changed suddenly. You just did not notice it changing. Attraction rarely collapses. It fades, not through one big mistake, but through a pattern of subtle ones, repeated so consistently they become invisible. It is not what you did once, it is what you kept doing. Let me show you exactly how it happens. In the beginning, things are balanced, natural, light. You have your life, she has hers, and the space between you has tension, the good kind. The kind that makes her think about you when you are not there. Then, something shifts. More texts, more check-ins, more need for confirmation that things are still good between you. Each one feels reasonable in isolation. Each one is a small investment, a small expression of care. But they accumulate. And what she starts feeling, without being able to name it, is pressure. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind, the kind that sits in the background of every interaction like a low hum she cannot turn off. You went from being a man she was drawn toward to a man she feels responsible for. And the moment she starts feeling responsible for your emotional state, the attraction begins to drain. Here is the second way it happens, and this one is harder to see. She takes a little longer to reply. Her tone is slightly different. She seems distracted. Nothing major, just a small shift in temperature. And you feel it. So you adjust. You become a little more careful, a little more attentive. You ask if everything is okay. You replay the last conversation looking for what you might have done wrong. She feels you adjusting. And that is the moment something changes in how she sees you. Not because you cared, but because the caring looked like fear. A man who recalibrates himself every time she changes temperature is telling her something without words. He is telling her that her mood controls his behavior. And a man whose behavior is controlled by her mood is not a man she can feel safe with. Because safety, for a woman, does not come from a man who follows her emotional weather. It comes from a man who has his own. Think about what that actually looks like from her side. She is having a bad day. She is distant. She pulls back slightly, not as a test, not as a signal, just as a human being having a hard moment, and he feels it and adjusts. And suddenly, the energy between them is charged with his anxiety about what her distance means. Now she is not just dealing with her bad day. She is managing his reaction to her bad day. She came home carrying something, and instead of finding a man who could hold steady while she processed it, she found a man who needed her to be okay so that he could be okay. That is an invisible weight, and it accumulates. The third pattern is the subtlest and the most destructive. You stop being unknowable. You explain everything. You share everything. Every thought, every plan, every feeling gets communicated. Because you believe that openness is what builds intimacy. And you are not wrong about intimacy. But you are wrong about attraction. Attraction requires tension. Tension requires uncertainty. And uncertainty requires that some part of you remains just slightly out of reach. When she can predict every move you make, when there is no question left about where you stand, how you feel, what you will do, you stop being someone she needs to figure out, and the mind stops paying attention to things it has already solved. There is a specific version of this that destroys more relationships than any argument ever could. The man who always picks up on the first ring, who always replies within seconds, who is always, without exception, available, who volunteers his feelings before she is even asked. He thinks he is showing her that she matters. What she feels, underneath the logic of it, is that he has nowhere else to be. And a man with pride, nowhere else to be, is a man who has quietly handed her all the power in the dynamic, not through one gesture, through 1,000 small ones that all said the same thing. I am here. I will always be here. You do not have to earn this. You did not turn her off with one mistake. You turned her off by removing everything that made you interesting. Now, here is what is actually happening underneath all of this. Attraction responds to three things: emotional control, stability, tension. When you overinvest, you remove stability. When you overreact, you remove emotional control. When you overexplain, you remove tension. Remove all three, and you have removed the architecture that attraction is built on. And here is the part most men never accept. By the time she pulls away, she has already been feeling it for weeks, maybe months. The shift in her was gradual. It built quietly, one interaction at a time, until the weight of it became undeniable. But for you, it feels instant, because you only noticed when it was already gone. So what do you actually do about this? Not as a tactic, not as a performance, but as a genuine shift in how you operate. First, stop exceeding her level of investment. Let things build at their natural pace. If she sends one message, send one. If she is warm, match it. If she pulls back, do not chase the warmth. Stay exactly where you are and let her find her way back. The moment you start giving more than she is giving, you have created an imbalance that works against you every time. Second, control your reactions, not by becoming cold or emotionally unavailable, but by developing the discipline to let small fluctuations pass without adjusting your behavior around them. She is allowed to have a bad day without it becoming your crisis. She's allowed to be distant without you reading it as a verdict on where you stand. A man who stays grounded when her temperature drops signals something her nervous system recognizes before her mind does. He is stable. He does not need her to be okay in order to be okay himself. That is the signal she's been testing for from the beginning. Third, keep your own life at the center. Your direction, your purpose, your friendships, the things you were building before she arrived. The moment your life begins to revolve around her, her presence becomes ordinary. Because she is everywhere, and things that are everywhere lose their impact. The man she cannot stop thinking about is the man who has somewhere else to be. Fourth, reintroduce absence, not as manipulation, as reality. Do not fill every gap. Do not respond to every silence. Let her experience what it feels like when you are not immediately available, not because you are playing a game, but because you actually have a life that does not pause for her. Absence creates contrast, and contrast is what reminds her what she has. Fifth, stop looking for reassurance. This is the one most men do not want to hear. Every time you ask if things are okay, when nothing has happened, every time you need confirmation that she still feels the same, every time you seek evidence that you are still valued, you are broadcasting something you cannot afford to broadcast, that your stability depends on her answer. A man who is stable does not need to keep checking whether the ground is still there. He knows it is, because the ground is him. Here is the truth you need to sit with. She did not lose interest randomly. You did not lose her in a moment. It happened slowly, through patterns, through habits, through behaviors so small and so consistent that neither of you noticed them building into something that changed everything. And the most uncomfortable part of all of this is that the behaviors that drove her away were almost always rooted in care. You texted too much because you liked her. You adjusted your behavior because you did not want to lose her. You shared everything because you wanted her to know you. The intention was never the problem. The pattern was. And patterns, unlike moments, can be changed. Not overnight. Not by reading a list of rules and following them mechanically, but by genuinely understanding what attraction responds to and choosing consistently to be that man. Not for her, for yourself. Because the version of you that is grounded, that is emotionally stable, that has a direction and does not need constant confirmation that he is enough, that version does not just attract her. That version attracts everything worth having. Attraction does not disappear overnight. It fades through patterns, and the moment you see them, you can finally control them.